Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host, Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we're going to be talking about home theater sound and speaker placement, and we'd like to thank D. Lamar Sobator for liking and sharing the podcast. And Cindy is almost finished with book 10. It's going to be a good one, and we'll be publishing it on Amazon in December. Bell Laboratories experimented with stereo sound in the 1930s using up to 80 microphones to record music. And they found that a 3-channel system using a center speaker and 2 speakers to the left and the right of that center speaker gave the best sound. It wasn't until the 1980s Dolby surround sound used 4 speakers for home theater sound. And it wasn't until the 1990s that 5.1 surround started coming out on DVDs. I spoke to a few manufacturers and a couple retailers this week about where to place speakers if you want to have home theater or surround sound when you're listening to your TV. And most of the people I spoke to said if you want a theater-like sound, look for a system that's at least 3.0 rather than 2.0 or 2.1. And if you want surround sound, you're looking for a minimum of 5.1. So that first number is the amount of channels, which is usually the number of speakers, although some sound bars or systems might have multiple speakers per channel.
Okay.
A 3.0 system would have a center speaker and 2 front speakers. You'd put that center speaker under or above the TV, and it's going to receive the dialogue and other sounds. The 2 other speakers would go on each side of the TV, and that's going to spread the sound and the effects, give you a sense of depth and movement. To add more bass to the sound effects, you can add a subwoofer. So if your system has 3 front speakers and a subwoofer, it would be a 3.1 system. That second number is the number of subwoofers. And some systems will have 2.
No way.
So if you have 3 front speakers and 2 subwoofers, it would be a 3.2 system.
Why didn't you let me guess?
A 5.1 system is surround sound. So you're going to have a center speaker and 2 front speakers and 2 surround speakers that would be at the back of the room or on the sides of your listening area, and a subwoofer. 5.1 surround systems send the audio information to where they were recorded on the movie soundtrack. So the dialogue is coming from that front center speaker, and the main sounds come from the 2 front speakers off to the side of the center speaker. You're going to have filler sounds and sound effects from the surround rear speakers, and it's going to make you feel like you're in the middle of the action.
Cool.
A 7.1 system would have 2 additional rear speakers, and this would give you better surround sound if you're in a large room. 5.1.2 or 7.1.2 is Dolby Atmos or DTS-X. That third number is upward firing speakers or ceiling speakers that are going to add more sound effects. And with this system, you could have 9 speakers plus a subwoofer, or 7 speakers that are also sending sound up to the ceiling and it's bouncing off the ceiling, so it sounds like it's coming from above. I went to Best Buy, and our local Best Buy has a theater, so you can test out some of these systems.
Do they have popcorn?
And the salesman put on a DVD to show off the Dolby Atmos, and it is amazing how it sounds like the sound effects are coming from above and around you. And then he put on some movie clips to show off how the sound moves across the speakers, and just small sounds, like some of the quiet scenes, it sounded like crickets off to the side, and then movement like something above you, like wind going through trees. Pretty amazing. There are other types of surround sound formats and the amount of speakers, like 6 or 11, but the most common is going to be 3, 5, or 7, and then usually with a subwoofer, so 3.1, 5.1, and 7.1. And the home theater installers I spoke to said in most homes, unless you have a very large dedicated theater room, a 5.1 system is going to give you a great sound experience for movies and music.
Cool.
I spoke to ABT Electronics, and it's just the letter A, the letter B, and the letter T, and they're at abt.com. And they've been around since 1936. And the gentleman I spoke to said they group their home theater sound in 3 categories: sound bars, home theaters in a box, and individual components. They suggested for small rooms, a quality sound bar can give theater-like sound, and they suggested to get one with a subwoofer and surround speakers, and you're not going to have the same separation of the sound effects or a sound experience like a 5.1 surround sound where you could separate those 2 front speakers. But it's an inexpensive way to get much better sound than your TV speakers, and especially if you're in a small room. They do a really nice job.
Okay.
They suggested if you're in a store comparing sound bars to listen to music rather than watch a movie at the store, because the visual takes your attention away from the sound quality, because they're usually playing action movies and you get caught up in the movie rather than the quality of the sound. Home theaters in a box are bundled systems. Usually you're going to get a surround sound receiver, 5 speakers, and a subwoofer. So you're going to have a dedicated center channel for the movie dialogue, left and right front speakers, and 2 rear speakers. And they said many home theaters in a box have limitations for upgrading the speakers, and usually they're the best for small rooms. If you build a home theater using individual component parts, you can size them to your space, so you can use 5, 7, 9, 11 or more speakers, and you can have 1 or more subwoofers. And that surround receiver, you should be looking for something that has the ability to upgrade or expand. And they said on the higher priced receivers, look for the ability to upgrade the firmware, and that way you can add new surround formats in the future.
Exciting.
For speaker placement, ABT recommended that the center channel should be below the TV and as close to the screen as possible so the dialogue looks like it's coming from the screen. And the left and right speakers should be away from the wall and pointed toward the main listening area. The center speaker and the 2 front speakers should be on the same plane or as close as possible, and that's going to give you the best sound. And you may want to add speaker stands to get them up off the floor, so that way they're pointing right at you. But check the manufacturer's recommendations for your speakers. The rear surround speakers should be near the back of the listening area, not just the back of the room. So if your seating area is away from a back wall, you'd have your surround speakers off to the side, and you would use stands or tables to get them higher than ear level. ABT says the subwoofer placement is actually very important, where a lot of manufacturers say you can kind of put it anywhere. They say it should go on the floor, not in a cabinet or entertainment center. Putting it near a wall is going to add volume. Putting it in a corner adds even more volume. They suggest putting the subwoofer in the main listening position, and then you're going to turn on some music with strong bass or drum beats. So wherever you'd be sitting, you would move your chair or your couch out of the way, and you'd put your subwoofer there. Then you'd get down on your hands and knees and crawl around your floor in areas where you would like to put it. So let's say you're thinking about putting your subwoofer off to the right or to the left of the TV. You're going to crawl around on your hands and knees with painter's tape, and where it sounds the best, you're going to put tape there. You're usually going to find 2 or more positions where it sounds really good. And now you're going to switch positions with the subwoofer. So you're going to put your subwoofer in one of those areas, put your couch, your sofa back, sit there, and keep moving the subwoofer until it sounds the best.
So you have to crawl?
Yes.
That's a requirement?
Yes, hands and knees. Most of the manufacturers I spoke to recommend having your speakers away from a wall for the best sound. One recommendation for a room that's roughly square or rectangular is to have the front speakers
What other shape is it going to be in?
Well, you could have an L-shaped room, or sometimes,
a round room?
Yes. Or you could have your TV off in a corner, and so, it's not pointing straight at you. But one recommendation was have the front speakers...
Okay, back to the square and rectangle room.
Yes. About 20% off the front wall, and the rear speakers about 20%, or your listening area, about 20% off the back wall. And that's going to give you the best sound. And it's actually not bad to pull chairs and couches away from a wall. That's going to prevent extension cords and power cords from getting pinched or putting a sharp bend in cords behind your furniture.
Right.
When I took some training from Leviton, that was one of the things that an arc fault outlet will protect against.
Hey, have you spelled yet in this episode?
Leviton, Leviton. They said that damaged extension cords that are bent for years behind furniture can cause arcing, which creates intense heat and potentially a fire. An arc fault outlet will sense arcing and turn off the power to protect against a fire. And putting an arc fault outlet on the first electrical box in a circuit will protect all the outlets past it. You should check out our episode on GFCIs and AFCIs. Dolby says when you're setting up speakers for surround sound, the front two speakers should be equal distance from the TV screen and roughly the same distance to the main listening area. You would put the center speaker under the TV as close as possible to the TV, and in a 5.1 system, the rear surround speakers should be to the sides of the listening area and just above ear level. One theater installer I spoke to said pulling your seating area away from a wall is going to improve the sound. Your front left and right speakers should be angled toward the listening area at ear level and be away from the walls. Your center channel should be centered and at ear level, or you should be pointing it towards the ear level of the listening area. Your rear surround speakers should be 1 or 2 feet above ear level and slightly behind and away from the listening area and pointing toward the listening area. And that's for a 5.1 system. If you have a 7.1 system where you would be adding 2 additional rear speakers, you'd leave 2 off to the side and slightly behind, and then you would have the 2 additional speakers directly behind and about 2 feet above ear level, and that's going to give you the best surround sound. And then he said, put the subwoofer somewhere in front. Generally, you're going to get the best sound. A common suggestion for the best sound was to have the center speaker below or above the TV and as close to the screen as possible, and then angle that speaker to the ear level in the main listening area.
Ear level, is that a technical term?
So point it at your ears, or point it at your eyes. And then you're going to have the 2 front speakers equal distance apart and equal distance to the main listening area. And that's going to form an equilateral triangle, so all the sides are the same length. And then have the tweeters of your speakers.
What?
The tweeters. So those are the small cones that produce the high frequencies. You want those at ear level and angle the speakers towards the listening area. If you have a 5.1 system, have the rear surround speakers at 90 degrees to the listening area or slightly behind the listening area at the same distance, if possible, as your front speakers. So if your front speakers are 10 feet away from the listening area, they're suggesting having your rear surround 10 feet away. And you want those 1 or 2 feet above ear level. For a 7.1 system, you would put those 2 additional speakers behind the listening area 1 to 2 feet above ear level, and they would face forward.
So you could put them on the wall, right?
Yeah, that actually makes it simple for a lot of these, rather than having stands or, having to get
shelving.
Tables and things. Yeah, you can mount them to a wall. One installer I spoke to said most companies and most installers recommend those surround speakers 90 degrees or slightly behind your listening area. He said that he actually prefers pulling them just slightly forward of the listening area and pointing it at the listening area. And he found from his experience, you pick up more of the sound effects. Because sometimes if you have somebody over and they're taller or bigger, it can block the sound.
Your ear level's different.
Right. How traumatic. If you're at this height, you can listen to my home surround sound. It's like going to an amusement park. So this gentleman suggested putting the surround slightly in front and pointing it towards the listening area for the best sound. He also said small adjustments to the speaker's placement can create a big difference in the sound. The sound waves hitting the listening area can either be amplified or reduced depending on how the sound from other speakers are hitting that area and how they're positioned. So he said take the time to reposition your speakers while you're watching a movie with good sound effects.
So these recommendations so far have been if you have one seating area, so
Right.
like a couch right in front of your TV.
Right, exactly.
So what if you have multiple seating areas, like a couple chairs?
Well, when I spoke to the gentleman from ABT, he said if you have multiple seating areas that you should set up your system if you have surround sound towards the main listening area. So if you're primarily sitting in one area, that's where you would set it up. And the rest of the room is going to get really good sound, but they're just not going to get that surround sound.
So if you don't like the people, you have them sit over there?
So you have a seating chart of where people sit in your house. And also, a couple companies said if you do have an odd-shaped room or a TV in a corner, that a 3.1 system might be all you need just to get great quality theater-like sound, but you're not going to get, all the seating isn't going to get that surround sound.
Okay.
I spoke to Orb Audio. It's ORB Audio, and they're at orbaudio.com, and I got some of these tips. They have home theater systems with small circular speakers, and their systems are modular. So you can start out with their soundbar system, which is 2 speakers that you set on both sides of the TV, and it's going to give you a much wider sound than a traditional soundbar that's just below the TV.
Right.
And it comes with an audio booster, and that way you can improve the dialogue depending on what you're watching. And you can add speakers and a subwoofer to the system so you can move up to a surround sound. And this is nice. If you're in a small home now, you can start out with a small system. And if you move into a bigger home, then you can add on to it.
Or if you get taller people to come over to your house.
Right. And they have systems, home theater systems for large rooms, and their speakers are handmade in the USA. I spoke to Enclave Audio. It's ENCLAVE, and they're at enclaveaudio.com. They have a 5.1 wireless home speaker system in a box. It doesn't need Wi-Fi or a hub, and you have no speaker wires. You just plug each speaker into an outlet or a power strip, and then you plug the main center speaker into the HDMI ARC port of your TV. So very easy system to set up.
Cool. Some
top-rated home theater systems are from Bose, B-O-S-E, Klipsch, K-L-I-P-S-C-H, Vizio, V-I-Z-I-O, Onkyo, O-N-K-Y-O, SVS, so it's just the letters S, V, and S, Sonos, S-O-N-O-S, Polk, P-O-L-K, Yamaha, Y-A-M-A-H-A, LG, just the letters L and G, Focal, F-O-C-A-L, Sony, Enclave, Orb, and Nakamichi, N-A-K-A-M-I-C-H-I.
I was worried you weren't going to spell this episode. Do you have anything else to add?
If you have a small area or multiple listening areas, a good 3.1 system can give you a great theater-like sound. For surround sound, you want 5.0 or 5.1, and use the equilateral triangle as your starting point for your front 2 speakers and your listening area, and then move the speakers around for the best sound.
Let's wrap this up.
You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Himalaya, or your favorite podcast app.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
You can download our books, Home Improvement Solutions, What Every Homeowner Should Know, books 1 through 9 on Amazon. And in December, book 10.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating and review.
You can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow Cindy on Twitter at FixItCohost. And you can follow us on Instagram, Fix It Home Improvement.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.